that is one kind of nibbana. It is called nibbana of mental defilement, so cessation of mental defilement. Cessation really means not arising again of mental defilement. Now we always speak of cessation of mental defilements or eradication of mental defilements. Actually, we cannot define mental defilements, but we cannot make them not arise again. It's very different, these two things. When mental defilements are in our mind, they are already there, and so we cannot destroy them. But we can do something so that they do not arise again in our mind. It is, for example, there is a tree with fruit. If we don't want fruit on the tree, we cannot just pick the fruit because the tree will give fruit again. So if we don't want it to give fruit, what we must do is do something, use some chemicals or something. So we must treat it with some chemicals so that although it does not die, it do not give fruit. So non-arising of fruit, we are destroying the fruit. Well, we do not destroy the fruit, but we destroy the potential of the tree to give fruit. So in the same way, when we say a person eradicates mental defilement, that means he does not eradicate the mental defilements which are already in his mind, but he makes them unable to arise again in his mind. And that is what we call eradication of mental defilement. So that eradication of mental defilement is one aspect of nibbana. And the other aspect of nibbana is cessation of all suffering. That means total disappearance of mind and body altogether. No more mind again, no more body again, and that is what is called cessation of all suffering. We are so attached to our lives, to our existence, and we always think in terms of existence, that if somebody were to say nibbana is to cease, nibbana is the total extinction of suffering, total extinction of mind and matter, they may not like it. Because we are always attached to ourselves and we think in terms of existence. So nibbana is not existence. Nibbana is the absence of all mind and matter. So people may not like nibbana. They may still want to be themselves, want to cling to the existence as human beings or as celestial beings. So it is nibbana is difficult to explain, difficult to understand, difficult to realize, and even difficult to like. So this is the third noble truth, and this third noble truth is like a cure of the disease. Then the fourth noble truth is the path leading to the cessation of suffering, and that is what? The Noble Eightfold Path. So the path or the practice which has 8 components. And you already know the 8 components, don't you? Yeah. Now for those who do not remember, let's repeat. The first one, what? Right understanding. The second, right thought. Yeah, right thinking or right thought. The third, right speech. Fourth, right action. Fifth, right livelihood. Sixth, right effort. Seventh, right mindfulness. And the eighth, right concentration. So these are the 8 components which are contained in this noble path. I have no time to explain them one by one. But all these 8, we call them factors or components. All these components are mental factors or mental states. They arise in our mind. And when we invoke these mental states in our mind, when we make them arise in our mind, then we are following this path. We are practicing this path. When we are thinking of something we want to possess, then they are not in our mind. Instead, there is attachment, there may be jealousy or envy or whatever in our mind. And at such times, there are not even one of these factors in our mind. And so at such times, we are not practicing the path. We are not following the path. Only when these factors are in our mind are we practicing, following this path. So you can imagine how much time you spend without the Noble Eightfold Path and how much time you spend with the Noble Eightfold Path. In other words, how much time you follow the Noble Path and how much time you do not follow the Noble Path. But when we practice meditation, we are following this path. All these 8 components are present in our mind when we practice meditation. So the best way of following this, the fourth truth or the Noble Eightfold Path, is to practice Vipassana meditation. When you practice Vipassana meditation, that you are instructed to be mindful, right? To be mindful of whatever is at the present moment. You're mindful of your breath or the movements of the abdomen or your thoughts or your emotions or sensations in the body. So when you pay attention to whatever is at the present moment, now you can see that there is effort. If you do not make effort to be mindful, you will not be mindful. So there is effort, and that is the right effort. And then your mind, as it were, hits the object. So when there is the object and you pay attention to it, then your mind hits the object. That is right mindfulness. So you have mindfulness of the object. When you make effort and you have mindfulness, and when mindfulness is good, then you have concentration too. Your mind can be on the object for some period of time. So there is concentration. When your mind is concentrated, then you see the thing clearly. You see the object clearly. That means you see that object arises and disappears. Now you think of your thought. So you have one thought, then you pay attention to the thought. Then it disappears, right? Then there is another thought maybe. Then you are aware of that thought too, and then that thought also disappears. And so when you really pay attention, you will not fail to see that they just come and go, they just arise and disappear. So that seeing that they arise and disappear, seeing that they are impermanent, and so they are unsatisfactory and insubstantial, is what we call right understanding. So right understanding means understanding the true nature of things, understanding things as impermanent, suffering, and soulless through direct experience, not just thinking about them, or not just reading about them, not just listening they talk about them, but by seeing them through self-experience. So there is what? Right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, and right understanding. Now what is right thought? Right thought really means a mental factor that takes the mind to the object. Now there are different mental factors arising at the same moment, and each has its own function. And that mental factor has a function of taking the mind to the object. If it doesn't take the mind to the object, there can be no mindfulness, no concentration, and also no wisdom, no understanding. And that mental factor is what is called right thought. Right thought does not mean the thinking about something, thinking rightly about something. It is a mental factor that has the function of taking the mind to the object. This mental factor is compared to a person who takes another person from another city to the mayor of the city, or say, to the president of the company or something like that. So that man has never been here before, and so he has to take him to that place. So without him, the other man cannot go there. So similarly, without this mental factor, mind cannot go to the object. So when mind cannot go to the object, there can be no hitting the object, no staying on the object, no understanding of the object. So this is also one of the factors or components of the fourth noble truth, the noble eightfold path. So how many factors do we have now? 5. So once again, what are they? Right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right understanding, right thought. Then where are the other 3? Right speech, right action, right livelihood. Now, strictly speaking, they are not present when we are practicing meditation, but they have been accomplished before we practice meditation. That is when you take precepts. That is why I make you take precepts at the beginning of each day. So when you take precepts, then you undertake to refrain from doing wrong, right? You undertake to refrain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, taking intoxicants. Now, right speech means abstaining from wrong speech, abstaining from telling lies, abstaining from slandering, and so on. And right action means abstaining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. And right livelihood means abstaining from these acts which are your livelihood. For example, you are a fisherman, so killing fish is your livelihood. Suppose your livelihood is some other thing and not fishing, but sometimes for fun you may go fishing. Although I don't recommend fishing, but it is just for the sake of explanation. So you go fishing as fun, as pastime, and then after some time you refrain from fishing. So in that case, you are having right action and not right livelihood. So that is the difference between right speech, right action on the one hand, and right livelihood on the other. If you refrain from wrongdoing, which is your livelihood, then you are getting right livelihood. If you refrain from the same action, but they are not your livelihood, then you are having right speech or right action. So when you take precepts and you have the intention to keep them, then you have accomplished you are said to have accomplished all 3. So these all 3 are not, strictly speaking, these all 3 are not present at the moment when we are meditating, but they have been accomplished beforehand. So we can say that all these 8 factors are present when we practice meditation. So when we practice Vipassana meditation, we are, say, following this path, the Noble Eightfold Path. We are going along this Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the best way, say, to follow or to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, that is practicing Vipassana meditation. Now, sometimes you do some meritorious deeds, just taking precepts and keeping them, and no meditation, or you make offerings. That is also wholesome action, right? So when you do such things, you may be said to be following the Noble Eightfold Path also. But that following is not as good as when you practice meditation. So when you practice meditation, all these 8 factors are present in your mind, and so you are really following the fourth truth, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. And for us, the fourth Noble Truth is the most important. The first 3 we don't have to worry about the first three actually. So what matters most for us is the fourth noble truth, because it is the medicine which we must take. I may not know what disease I have. I may not know the origin of the disease. But if I take the medicine, then I will get cure. So, such as medicine is most important for a person who is suffering from some disease, so the fourth noble truth is for us the most important. And we must follow this path, or we must practice as much as we can to follow this eightfold. The fourth noble truth, the eightfold path. And I'm very glad that all of us practice Vipassana meditation, and so we are following in the steps of the Buddha. Now, with regard to these four noble truths, there are said to be functions. So what is to be done with regard to the first noble truth, what is to be done with regard to the second noble truth, and so on. Now, what must we do with regard to the first noble truth? We must understand it fully. So that is the thing we must do with regard to the first noble truth. When we practice Vipassana meditation, we will not fail to see the first noble truth. Now, suffering or dukkha can be seen in many ways. So you go to a hospital and you see people suffering there, and say, oh, there is suffering, there is suffering. But that is superficial understanding of the first noble truth. The deep understanding of the first noble truth is to see dukkha everywhere. To see dukkha even when you are enjoying yourself. That is a deep understanding of the first noble truth. And when you practice Vipassana meditation, you will not fail to see this aspect of dukkha. Because whatever you keep your mind on seems to disappear. So just arising and disappearing, and so you see dukkha in a very powerful way. So with regard to the first noble truth, the thing we must do is what? To understand it fully. And what about the second noble truth? What must we do with regard to the second noble truth? We must get rid of it. We must throw it away. So getting rid of it is the function we must do to the second noble truth. Then the third noble truth, nibbana, or the cessation of suffering. What must we do? We must realize it. We must see it clearly. No? So it is called realization. So we must realize it. So realization is what we must do with regard to the third noble truth. And the fourth noble truth, what must we do? We must practice. We must develop. So development or practice is what we must do with regard to the fourth noble truth. So these are the functions to be done to the four noble truths. So these are the four noble truths taught by the Buddha. And as I said, whatever the Buddha taught during his 45 years of ministry is always included in these four noble truths. So there is nothing out of these four noble truths. And Buddha said that because through not understanding, not realizing four things and four noble truths, that you as well as I had to wander so long through this round of rebirth. That means because we don't really see for ourselves the four noble truths, we have to go from one life to another. There is no end of our journey through this round of rebirth. Once these four noble truths are really seen by us, really experienced by us, have done these four functions to the four noble truths, then we will be able to cut this round of rebirth, or we will be able to get out of this round of rebirth. So understanding the four noble truths is really important. It is a key to get rid of suffering. And if you want to know more about the Four Noble Truths, more details of the Four Noble Truths, I would like to recommend this book. It's called The Word of the Buddha. And this book was compiled by a German Buddhist monk. His name was Jnana Tiloka. He passed away in 1956. He was an old man at that time. He was a German Buddhist monk. And this is actually not his original writing. It is a compilation of the explanations given by the Buddha himself of the Four Noble Truths. You don't find these explanations in one place in the discourses. So he collected these explanations from different discourses and then put in order. And so it is very systematic explanation of the Four Noble Truths in the very words of the Buddha. Let's say, actually it is a translation of the words of the Buddha, but let's say it is Buddha's own explanation of the Four Noble Truths. I taught this at another place in San Francisco, and there are tapes of this class. I don't remember how many, maybe about 20 tapes. So this is the book, but it is not so easy to understand. You need a teacher to explain it to you, or you need to read some other commentaries to fully understand it. But it is very systematic treatment of the Four Noble Truths, and it is rather complete for the understanding, deep, in-depth understanding of the Four Noble Truths, and in Buddha's own words, and not explained by later, say, teachers or modern people, but in his own words. You can study, you can understand the Four Noble Truths. It's a very small book, but it's very systematically arranged, and so it should be a textbook at the Buddhism classes. So now we come to the end of one topic, and the Four Noble Truths. We have yet to go to other topics, or the last but one topic, and that is dependent origination. Now, I gave talks on dependent origination at one of my retreats in Lafayette, and there are about 12 tapes. Yes, there are about 12 tapes. So if I have to explain the dependent origination, it will take 12 talks. So. But next time I will explain it to you so that you can understand it. So now you may ask questions.